Good Tree Productions, Take 3, Catholicism. There is a lot of confusion about what the word Catholic means. To the average American, if you say Catholic, you're talking about the Roman Catholic Church down the street. If you were to say that to the average European, the same would be true, except some might say, oh, well, yeah, but there's some old Catholic churches too. The term is a Latin term, and its equivalent in Greek is ecumenical. It means universal, but in its original form, it just means the universal church. It didn't become uniquely a Roman idea until the papacy had secured its place through everything from military conquest to Machiavellian intrigue. It became an imperial church with an imperial leader, an absolute monarch, and it still has. The Roman Church still has an absolute monarch as its head. The Eastern Church never accepted that, and it's really difficult for even the most devout Roman Catholic to make a historical argument that this has always been the view of the Church, that it's centered in Rome, because that's just simply not true. It's not true historically, and it's not true theologically. When Pope Pius, whatever it was, called Vatican I, he did so as a to formulate, in his opinion, a response to what he called modernism. And modernism to him and to the sort of right-wingers of their day meant a secular, free, and democratic state, which meant independent of the church, independent of its control. And keep in mind that when the old boy called the council, this was at a time when Garibaldi had taken the papal states from the control of the Vatican and had unified Italy, and the Pope was not a happy camper. So this whole move to declare infallibility as a doctrine, a dogma of the church, as a result of that, and it was the way to circle the wagons. And when the Archbishop of Utrecht and Holland said, no, that's not the old way of doing things, hence the term was born, O Catholic. And then when they came to the United States, the whole thing fell apart. And it's never been the same since in the United States. And this is why the Dutch bishops and the Austrian and the German bishops, who are in the Union of Utrecht, do not recognize any of the American or British groups. There's a term that is used, and it's not a complimentary term, and my Latin is horrible, but I'll try. Episcopi Vagantes, or Wagantes. Anyway, it means wandering bishops. And it comes from these mostly socio-psychopaths in the early days that went around squeezing everybody's head, wanted to be a bishop, and produced all manner of, oh Lord, the psychodrama that we have today. And it's just genuinely sad. Because out of that came everything, all these esoteric groups, you know, the New Agers. There's nothing New Age about it. It's been around since people sat in smelly old, dusty, moldy caves. But you get all manner of sociopaths. And sadly, a great many of these groups, and they're never more than, at the maximum, maybe a couple of people. The legitimate communities that actually has viable communities even are very small. And they represent a minute part of this. Mostly it's a bunch of frustrated queens hiding their psychosexual issues behind a cassock and a pointy hat. But that, as I've said before, and that's not true of all, but really that's where most of this comes from. It's a bunch of people who spend fortune. I mean, let me tell you, bishop's drag is not cheap. Clergy apparel is not cheap. a collar, for example, runs you about $20-something, and these shirts are at the least you can get is around $50. So, you know, and if you put in investments, you're talking about thousands of dollars. So these characters that are, you know, festooned in these elaborate costumeries, they've paid a fortune. And, you know, and if you'll notice, as I've often said, look at the photographs and you will see, if they've not been photoshopped, they're actual photographs, they're always taken from the congregation facing the altar, and that's because there is no congregation in 98% or 99% of them. There's some people that we'll talk about in the future. As soon as I can get this video business down pat, there are a couple of characters I'd like to explore. So until then, I will continue to work on my video skills, and I appreciate your patience. I hope you can share any of these that you would like. Certainly would be welcome to. Peace.